welcome back to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal. I am your host, going over shark attacks from the 1900s till present. Mostly large sharks. We'll get started over off of Goat Island. That is Oahu, Hawaii. The date, June 10th, 1993. Jonathan Mozo, 22 years old. He and a friend Ryan, they're at the beach. It's early in the morning, just after 7. They're the first two into the water. Jonathan's on a surfboard, and Ryan, he has a boogie board. They're both in shallow water within 100 yards of the shore, and like I said, it's just after 7. Ryan's board suddenly, as he's laying on it, his boogie board gets bumped. It gets bumped pretty hard and it startles him. Thinks about it for a second, duck dives under a wave, and when he comes up he can hear screaming, and it's his friend Jonathan. So he goes over and paddles over to Jonathan really quick. Jonathan had been bitten in both feet, and he had been able to get his feet out of the shark's mouth, and then he was paddling, so Ryan joined up with them, and now they're both paddling to shore. A couple of their surfers that were getting ready to get into the water had seen the two of them paddling in pretty rapidly, so they went out to meet them, helped administer first aid. One of them put Jonathan on his shoulder and carried him up to the parking lot so that they were able to put him in a car. About 10 minutes later, they had him to the hospital. He ended up with 30 stitches in each foot, and they had to repair a tendon in one of the feet. They believe this was a tiger shark that had bit him. The Oahu, Hawaii, somebody over there went ahead and hired fishermen to go ahead and go after sharks. So they put out 10 hooks. They caught 2 sharks. One was a 10-foot tiger shark and the other one was a 13-foot tiger shark. I didn't see any updates as to them opening these sharks up and seeing if there was anything, or going ahead and trying to match teeth to the things, so to the wounds, so no telling whether these were the sharks or not. Tiger sharks are all over the place in Hawaii, so I would say it's pretty difficult to say that those, they got the shark that did it. The fact they were in shallows, I would think that 10-foot tiger shark might be a little bit too big to get up underneath that board, bump it, and get over to his friend. But all it says is shallows. I mean, if it's 3 foot of water, yeah, it can get underneath you and things like that. But without knowing how deep it is, it's hard to tell how big of a shark that could have been. But we'll never know. We're going to put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate by a tiger shark. We just don't know what size. Now we're going to head over to Adventure Aquarium, and that is in Camden, New Jersey. The date, December 6, 2009. Robert Large, he is 58 years old, and he has been, for over 15 years, I believe it is, he'd been a volunteer diver at the aquarium. He's at Adventure Aquarium, and him and a dive buddy, they get into the tank. There's a ladder on the side, so they're in full wetsuits. They get on the ladder, they lower themselves into the water, and then they go about their business. They don't, fall into the water like you would off of a boat. They just climb down a ladder. So on this day, Robert Large is heading down the ladder. He gets, I believe it's about 2 feet under the surface, and then he's going to back himself up. So he climbs down the ladder and then just pushes back. And when he pushed back, he bumped into something, and then it felt a clamping sensation on his leg, lower leg and foot, which he thought was a turtle, and he looked, and it was the sand tiger shark that was in the aquarium. Those sand tigers, gray nurse, that have all the teeth that are always in the aquariums. Well, this one, he bumped into it when he pushed back off of there, and in retaliation, the shark grabbed onto his foot. Now, Robert, to get the shark to let go, he took his right leg and put it by his left leg, hoping the shark would release him, but it didn't. So then he just turned his body around like he was going to go up the ladder, and when he did that turning motion, the shark released him, and then his dive partner, who was still not in the tank, was able to see the tail of the shark come up and hit this, start flapping at the surface as it went away from Robert. Robert gets up. He needed 15 stitches, or he had 15 puncture holes that were in his foot, lower calf, and ankle, and he had to get some of those stitched up. He was going to, I went ahead and I was reading a bunch of follow-ups on this. Robert Large was supposed to get his medical bills paid for by the aquarium, and I ran into a story that was about a year after the attack. His medical bills had ran up to about $75,000. The aquarium only went ahead and reimbursed him for $20,000 of that. So it seems, by what Robert Large says, is that he still owed $55,000. Plus, the aquarium got rid of him. A volunteer diver, that was into him being able to be a volunteer diver there. And so it seems that he hasn't had his bills even paid for from this. You know, it's a workplace injury. Your place of work should be paying for that. So, you know, hopefully he gets that straightened out. It's bad enough that you ended up getting injured by the shark, but then to, you know, have to fork out your own money, or, you know, I'm thinking your own money, if you don't have insurance through the place and they're going to pay for the bills, how are you going to pay for it? So that just, you know, adds insult to injury in my mind. So we're not going to put this down as an attack. That is a provoked issue. Anytime that you're bitten by any enclosed shark, you know, it's in a tank, that's going to be provoked. The shark wouldn't even be there. I mean, if you're out in the ocean and you get attacked by a shark, fine, but the shark has nowhere to go. You jump in a closed place with it, in this case, backed into it, totally provoked. But, you know, that's a 7-foot sand tiger, so that's our story of Robert Large. You know, we're going to head over to a shipwreck spot over in Western Australia, and the date is October 14th of 2009. Matt Bowen is 23 years old. He and a dive partner are out doing some diving. It sounds like they're separated because Matt is swimming along and he feels a tug on his leg. At first he thought it was his friend Alex, because the two of them would grab each other to try to act like they were a shark grabbing onto each other. And so he didn't think nothing of it, thought it was probably Alex grabbing onto his leg. But right after, you know, he thought about it and dismissed it, the shaking got more violent, and he looks down and he's got a 3-meter or 10-foot shark clinging to his leg. He takes his other leg now and he starts kicking at the shark as hard as he can, and he's trying to do anything to get it away from him. The shark doesn't let go at first. It finally releases him, but he says it was coming back at him again, and luckily the fin got in the way, so it came back in to bite him again, and he's still trying to fend it off. Now Alex, she comes over, his dive partner, and she starts kicking the shark. So you got two people kicking the shark, a 10-foot shark, and it finally swims away. Alex goes ahead and grabs him, and then takes him right up to the surface. On an angle, it sounds like they surface right by their boat. Gets him up and on there. He gets in and he gets stitched up. He had been bitten on the inner calf and has a 10-inch long scar now after it's all healed up. He did have tendon damage, but he had that bite to the inner calf. And it turned out it was a 10-foot bull shark that had a hold of him, and that would explain why it wasn't going to stop when he was kicking it. And it took two of them to kick it, luckily, to get it to go away. This is a case where if you're on your own, I don't think that he would have been been on the planet anymore, at least not living, because those bull sharks, you know, a 10-foot bull shark, he's sitting there kicking it, he can't get it to stop, and it's coming back at him. He is lucky he had a second person there to probably changed that shark's mind, because I think it wanted to predate him. Went ahead and grabbed him by the inner thigh and was doing a pretty good job of shaking him around, and then was coming back afterwards. I think it was going to go ahead and make an easy meal out of a human until his friend Alex came over and helped him out. We'll put this down as an attack and an attempt to predate by a 10-foot bull shark. And now we're going to head over to Diego Garcia Island. That is British territory. The date is June 13th of 2014. Fernando Licay, he is 33 years old, and he is with some friends. They're at the beach. They're at a designated swimming area when Fernando decides he's going to go swimming. Nobody else goes with him. He enters the water, and as soon as he does, his friend said he was attacked by a shark. He wasn't 25 feet from shore, and a shark came over and grabbed him by the leg. Holding onto his leg, the friends enter the water, and they grab onto Fernando, and they're trying to drag him from the shark. The shark will not let go. Eventually the shark does let go, but not while they were trying to help him. Shark lets him go, and he passes away shortly after. The shark releases him due to loss of blood. So by the time they got him to the shore, there was nothing they could do. The French tried to get the shark off of him. They said this is between a 6 and 10-foot shark, but they don't know what kind of shark it is. Hard to say. I don't know the Diego Garcia area very well, or what kind of sharks, or what kind of temperature is in the water. but we're going to put this down as an attack and an attempt to predate. We just don't know what kind of shark. Now we're going to head off of Guam, and the date on this attack is April 13th of 2013. Deok Kim, he is 40 years old, and he somehow ended up into the water. Nobody knows when he went into the water, where he was when he entered the water, but on the 13th of April, they found his remains. Two fishermen found Deok Kim's remains floating about 20 yards off of shore. Like I said, they don't know what had happened, but they do know that this attack ended up happening when he was alive, and we'll get into that in a minute. But they found his remains floating in the water, and then they do an autopsy on that, and the coroner in this case said that he found signs of bleeding, which meant that Nay was alive when he was attacked. Now, how do you know that there's signs of bleeding, when you're in the water like that? I don't know, how you're going to determine that, and if that's the case, you should be able to determine that. And a lot of other things, where you get the body, but a lot of times I thought it was a judgment call. So if anybody out there knows what signs of bleeding you would have still on you when you're in the water like that, that's what's confusing me, I guess. But they said that he had his left arm, I believe it was removed almost all the way up to the body, and both of his legs were missing. He was also missing part of his intestines, and no telling on how many sharks ended up biting him. But by what the coroner said about signs of bleeding, he was alive when the initial attack happened. So we're going to put this down as an attack and a predation. We don't know what kind of shark. Okay, now we're going to head over to Super Tubes, which is in Jeffreys Bay. That's Eastern Cape Province, South Africa. The date, July 20th, 1989. Edward Razzano, 34 years old. He is out doing some surfing. It's about 10:30 in the morning, and he's in about 10 feet of water, and he's only 40 yards from a reef. And he's laying on his board, like I said, in 10 feet of water, but he is the closest to the shore out of about 30 surfers that are out there. 25 to 30 surfers are out in the water. He is closest to shore. And another surfer that was nearby him noticed that there was a shark slowly following him. So Edward is on his board, and he's probably paddling, and the shark, he says, is lazily, the witness says it's lazily following Edward, and suddenly it opens its mouth wide open and just flicks its tail and is in a charge at Edward. And Edward's looking off to the left, probably looking for a wave, and he is grabbed on the other side and pulled down into the water with his board. So he's clamped to his board, right on his hip, clamped to his board and pulled down almost into the water. He says that he didn't know what was going on, so he reached back with his hand to see what it was, and he could feel the dorsal fin. So he reached back and touched the dorsal fin, and now he's like, what's going on? He says shortly after that, a wave curled and hit them. And he said the weirdest thing was, because when you're on a board, I guess when that wave comes over you like that, it kind of starts spinning you. You get a spinning action, or it tries to turn the board. He said the craziest thing was it's the first time that a wave had rolled on him and there was no movement. It didn't affect the board at all because the shark had a hold of him, so he didn't do anything. So that's kind of strange that he was actually able to notice that during an attack, that it was odd that he wasn't spun around like normal in the water. But he said just after that wave had curled, the shark released him, and him and the board kind of sprung up into the water, up to the surface of the water, and that he had slipped off his board, and he could see the shark below his feet, probably swimming underneath him to go away. But he didn't know that. He said that he had made sounds that he didn't think humans could make in his scramble to try to get up on the board. But suddenly that shark was gone. So he gets up on his board, gets in, gets the help that he needs. Not much damage to the front because he was laying on the board. It's all on the back, and it involved the upper thigh, the buttocks, and just above his hip. And it's probably a great white shark that grabbed a hold of him by looking at the arc of the thing. I think around a 9-footer grabbed him by the hip. But it's a pretty big bite, and clamping you and dropping you down in the water like that. He gets in and he gets stitched up, and he survives the attack. crazy one, that's where the shark hit first. You know, you have those, like the H. David Baldrige stats of what is the shark doing before it attacks, how many times they circle, how many times they make a beeline at the person, and how many times they don't make any kind of a unusual action at all. They're just kind of like going about their business and they bite someone. This started out like they're going about its business and it's going to bite somebody if it ended up doing it, but then it went right into that charge, that head-on charge of them. Mouth wide open. It's just crazy that this guy got to sit there and see the whole attack. Most attacks are not noticed until, you know, just before they happen or right when they happen, if not afterwards. So this guy got to witness the whole thing, from the shark lazily following to charging him. Put this down as an attack. Not an attempt to predate. Again, we're going to head off of Minderee, and that is over by Perth, Australia, and the date is June 5th of 2016. Doreen Collyer is 60 years old, and she is out doing some diving. Her dive partner, John, is out there in the water. They're both in the water, and they're kind of separated by a little bit. Doreen's husband is going to drive down there and meet them to do some fishing there. A mile offshore. Doesn't say how deep the water is, but they're in the water, and John, her dive partner's in the water. He doesn't see anything, but he can feel something went by. So it's one of those where this thing's probably on a charge, one of those fast charges that they can do. And who knows if it goes under him, goes behind him. He doesn't even know where it went. He just knows something went by him. So he must have felt the rush of the water. You can't hear nothing. So he must have felt the rush of the water. So he felt that he needed to surface. He goes to the surface, and when he gets there, he can see a commotion over by where Doreen was, and he knows she's being attacked by a shark. Now he's going to go over and try to help her, but before that even happens, before he can even get over there are fishing boats in the area, and one of them notices Doreen being attacked, so the captain takes the boat over and gets the boat in between Doreen and the shark, and he's going to lift her up out of the water. But before he can do that, he ends up having to take the boat and put it between John and the shark. Now the shark seems like it's interested in John, so the boat gets in between the shark and John, which allows John to swim back to his dinghy. John gets into the dinghy, and now he comes over while the boat occupies the shark. He pulls Doreen up and out of the water. They take her in. Sadly, her husband gets pretty much to the beach, and he can see all the commotion. He knows something has happened in the water, and it turns out his wife had been fatally attacked by the shark. They don't explain the wounds, but they were pretty vicious, and I'm going to put this thing down as an attack and an attempt to predate, I believe, by a great white shark. There was witnesses of the shark after the attack. One of the people were filming it when they were on a boat, so there's a video of the shark, and the guy's filming the dorsal fin as it's going by, but you can hear one of them say, "Oh, that thing's huge." So I've heard it's, you know, anywhere from over 4.5 meters to well over 6 meters. There was a 5.5 meter size given out on that before, so you're talking 19 feet there. But anyway, this is a shark that's 15 feet to 19 feet, anywhere in there, and the great white, an attack. I'm going to put it down as an attempt to predate, even though I don't know what the actual injuries are. That boat had to come over and get in between Doreen and the shark itself. So right there, I'm going to put that down as an attempt to predate, let alone it started showing some interest in John. So that's our final attack as far as unprovoked attacks of the show. We'll be right back and finish out the show with a quick "What were you thinking?" Okay, before we finish out the show with "What were you thinking?" it's just a couple quick comments. Opened the store back up. The U.S. territories, Sharks Happen website, sharkshappen.com. There is a huge sale. I put everything on sale on there, so you can get everything much cheaper than you could before. So you can go there, go ahead and put in an order, buy your stuff. The prices will stay like that at least through Christmas. Also on my Etsy store, which is www.etsy.com/shop/SharksHappen2. That's the page that'll take you to the Etsy store. If you go on there and you shop, also I have it set up through Christmas Day. That'll be the last day of it. I have it set up so that when you're at checkout and you're going to pay, you put in the promo code predate, and you put in predate. into the promo code and you will save 10% off of your purchase. That includes every item that's on there. So whatever's in your cart, you use when you get to the checkout, you put in promo code per date, you save 10% on your order. The other store, like I said, it's ready to go, and I just wanted to give you that information there. Now we're going to finish out the show with kind of a what were you thinking, but I'm not sure that it's a what were you thinking, because I'm not sure what he was doing when this happened. Abdullah, this is one of the most famous attacks over in Singapore, 1950. Abdullah was a diver, and he was known for diving for pennies, and he would do a trick to where he would dive, he would put a lit cigar in his mouth, and then he would put it in his mouth, and he would dive down, collect his penny, and come back to the surface, and the cigar is still lit, and he would be smoking on the cigar. But the reports are that he had done this for years, and finally his luck ran out in 1950 when he dove down. He was bitten by a shark, and it was fatal. Like I said, it would be what were you thinking if I know he was diving down to pick up some pennies, but it could be he was diving down and he was doing his little trick. So I mean, I'm all for tricks, so that wouldn't be a what were you thinking, that would be, oh, that's a trick gone wrong type of situation. So that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you'll be back in a few more days, but always remember, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.